All right, guys, how's it going? This is Bob, and today I'm going to be talking about one of my favorites of all time, Todd McFarlane's Spawn. Actually, just did this video right after the Cyberforce video. This is not my copy, as you can see this horrific crease that's in this cover here. But these comics are not worth what anyone, thought they would be worth back in the 90s during the speculator boom. I could probably go get a new one of these for like $5, which is what a standard comic costs nowadays. I've got, this was in my friend's comic thing. I had it out, so I was like, okay, I'm going to go ahead and do a review of this. I don't really need to reread because I've read this 100,000 times. I remember, again, this was like the start of my Image fever. This is, I remember when I think I read Spider-Man number 16, which is, in my opinion, one of the prettiest comics to ever be released. There was something about it that I was absolutely in love with. It was, to me, that was like some... I thought that was peak McFarlane until we get to this. And then this ended up being peak McFarlane. The artwork for Spawn for McFarlane lasted a while, but towards the end of his run on Spawn as an artist is when the quality of the artwork did start to drop a little bit. And it was only because he was taking on so many responsibilities. He had started the toy company and everything. He was bringing out multiple titles. There was a lot going on here, So I know that it gets a little, overwhelming and everything. And Todd was an entrepreneur at heart. So he, was prepared for that and going for the business stuff. Okay, without any further ado, here is Spawn number 1. So right here, I want to bring this up because I find this to be a bit hilarious. And I think I saw this in an interview with Eric Larson. But here we have the editor is Wanda Kolomijek. I'm not sure, how you pronounce the last name, but we all know that this is Todd McFarlane's wife. And it came off as apparently all of the Image guys, or most of the Image guys, were using their wives' names as an editor for their book, because in the end they really didn't actually have an editor. That was one of their little freedoms or whatever of starting Image, was the fact that they could do whatever they wanted and they didn't have somebody else there telling them what to do on the books or what to change or anything. Okay, that's wild. Is this is part of the print? I never noticed this before, so I'm going to have to look at my copy, because I know that my copy does not have this going on. I had never seen that before, so that's very wild. That's just how it is here. Did my friend get some weird print of this and then mess that up? Well, whatever. But anyway, so if you look at Eric Larson's, I think it said something like Janie Wong or something like that was his editor, and that's actually his wife's name. And the funny thing is right now when I make a comic, right now, like my comic, I am literally doing everything on my own. I'm writing it, I'm scripting it, I'm penciling it, I'm inking it, I'm doing all the lettering. And when I go to put my credits over there and I want it to look legit, I have everything done by me, I almost want to make up other names or whatever to put in there and say that somebody did something. And the wildest thing is that I've always wanted to work with a team to produce a comic. Like, I felt like, I didn't want to do it all on my own. My first, I guess you could say, professional comic gig where I'm getting paid to put out a book, I talked to the person and we're discussing pricing for stuff and such. And I asked him, like, hey, where's the rest of the team? Who do you have for colors and who do you have for letters? And he's like, oh no, you'll do everything. And I'm just like, that was one of the more disappointing things of that. That was a little heartbreaking, because I was kind of looking forward to that. Who knows? Maybe I was lucky that I didn't have to do that. I'm not sure, because I never had to work with a team, and I know that right now it's incredibly hard to work with just a writer. So anyway, here we go. We're going to start here with an outside view from space of Earth as we're, it's getting farther away. into the darkness, and then it turns into this city. And it's basically just, you know, the inner voice of, we know it's Spawn, saying that he doesn't belong here. And he wants to die again, right? And I think that's a nice catch, right? We're getting all of this, you know, inner dialogue here, but I chose to come back. Why? You know, we're getting all of this. Now we're going to get, you know, a setup for everything. And I kind of liked the way that Todd McFarlane did this. It's original, but I think sometimes it came off as just a little bit too much. Like, we're getting 3 different viewpoints for like the same information from 3 different setups. Now, this is set up as Channel 7, but later on becomes E! Entertainment News. So that's wild. But this is the one that I think we see the most in other people's, in the other Image Founders books, is her. I think she ended up being the standard news person for those other books. Okay. So they're just going on about, you know, the memorial or the funeral for Al Simmons, and, you know, what happened to him. And then they talk about his widow, Wanda Blake, and everything. And of course, this is back in 1987 when that death would have taken place. Okay. And now we have Spawn flashing back. And can I just say, again, all of this was just, I was so blown away with it. I'm like, I wish I was as designy as Todd McFarlane is. It's not just so much that I like his artwork and I like what he does, the energy that's there with the action and everything. Like, I love this, you know, picture of him getting burned or whatever. This picture of this skull or whatever. Something on this page, I don't know. My friend was not very careful with his comics, but that's weird because he gave them to me to watch after. But yeah, so I don't know. I was just in love with all of this. But basically, this is him flashing back, and we're getting little, you know, clues as to who this person was and what kind of happened. And then same thing over here, right? You know, Spawn making his deal with the devil in order to come back and everything when he finds out that, you know, he was being killed. I particularly loved this image where it's like shooting life back into him. And then this image of Wanda here. I always kind of liked that photo negative look that Todd McFarlane would do. Sometimes it doesn't work, sometimes it does. But all of this here, I was just majorly in love with. I have drawn people doing this face like a billion times. This was something that stuck with me because, like, when I first got this book, seriously, I poured through it like 10 times a day, studying every little line, studying everything, learning what I could on how to draw something. The Todd McFarlane way, because, like, he was basically like, if you want to learn to draw comics, learn from the people who draw comics, which is what other people had said not to do before. But so yeah, we cut over here and we're getting our first kind of look at Spawn, you know, completely, and we're also getting our first look at the timer, or, you know, timer or power gauge, whatever you wanted to call it. Right, and then we get our moment, our piece de resistance, the double page spread of one of the best pictures that Todd McFarlane has ever put out. So much detail everywhere. You know, I could say this, right? Like, the Image guys were known for being late, and comics run on a monthly schedule. But comics run on a monthly schedule when you have the crew to do that. This is why comics were done. Where you had a penciler, an inker, a colorist, and a letterer, and all that. You had a team working on it so that, you know, they could get that done in a month time frame. When you had these people like Eric Larson and Todd McFarlane and everybody making their own book, they're writing it, they're penciling it, they're inking it, you know, that's a lot that's going on there. They have to do most of the work now. I feel their pain because I do the same thing, and I know how hard that is, and I know the things that suffer from it when you have to do more than one of the jobs that are on there. I would have been happy if they had brought out 6 issues a year. If it was every 2 months they brought an issue out in order to produce this type of artwork, I would have been 100% on board. It didn't have to be a monthly thing. I think they were just doing a monthly thing to keep up with everyone else out there who was doing a monthly thing. But just like I had said in a previous video, that I think one of the Rob Liefeld had peaked when he did Youngblood #2, and that was because there was like several months between the release of Youngblood #1 and Youngblood #2, and you could tell, you could see the artwork, it was there. There was time, he had time to work on it, he didn't have to rush it, he could sit back and do as much as he wanted or whatever. Yes, I feel like that hurts sales because people are going to forget the book exists, or they're not going to care anymore because of the huge gaps in between. But I gotta be honest, when it was this, we were getting those huge gaps anyway. I would have been fine with it. This page is absolutely insane. The artwork, the coloring, everything about this was mind-blowing and still is when I look at it today. Now we meet, for the first time, Sam and Twitch, which will be staple characters of this book. We get a little bit of, we're getting that he's the detective, Twitch is his partner here. I wouldn't necessarily compare them to Sherlock Holmes at all. We have this, disgruntled, overweight cop. And, this, the nerdy guy who seems to know everything, but tends to back him up because it doesn't seem like he's too bright or whatever. But they're, looking over the murder of another mobster. Okay, so they're setting, up the work for that. So here's Spawn, jumping around off of buildings when he comes across a gang of people who look like they are about to hurt this poor woman, and they're ripping her clothes off. And Spawn jumps down and he's like, "Get out now or you'll all be dead." There you go. I mean, puts it right out there. Blunt. You get, you guys don't have to think about it. I'm telling you what's going to happen here. So this is something that I always find to be unbelievable. Okay. You read Spider-Man. Everybody knows who Spider-Man is. Spider-Man jumps down and he's like, "Hey, leave that woman alone." And they're like, "Well, I got a knife, so I can beat Spider-Man." Don't you think these people have seen the news or read a newspaper? J. Jonah Jameson's made a life of printing Spider-Man stuff in the Daily Bugle. These people always believe, and that's something to me that is just completely unbelievable. It's something that always gets me. But basically, this guy's just like, "I'm going to carve you up with this knife or whatever." And Spawn's like, "I don't think so," as he throws him through a window. And then this guy here is, he's like, "Yeah, nobody jerks with me." So then Spawn sends this little, spark of a magic or whatever it is that explodes. And these guys are like, "Oh, fuck, we need to get out of here," right? But it literally took like a bunch, all of this. I gotta be honest, if I saw Dracula jump down in the middle of this fucking alley, I'd have been like, "Yep, I'm out, sorry." I'd have helped the woman up, cleaned her off and everything, and said, "I am going to change my life around forever because I am not messing with this monster." Okay? He comes over to help her, and of course she's just like, if I was her, I'd be shitting myself right now too, with this, vampire coming after her or whatever. And then of course he starts suffering his flashback, right, slips back into all of this. And here is what I'm talking about with the designy stuff, right? Why are there bubbles? I don't even know. His death didn't, revolve around any kind of water or anything like that. But who cares? Because it's on there and it looks awesome, right? We get the skulls, we get his eye, we're getting all this other stuff. We even have spider webs. Why? Because he came off as Spider-Man. There's no other reason for it. Spawn doesn't do anything with spider webs. But it doesn't matter because all of this is insanely stylish and looks gorgeous on the page here and is somehow also telling the story. So that's great. So here, he's having these visions again of Wanda, who, turns into this demon monster, kind of resembles the Lizard from the Tom McFarlane Spider-Man comics, when that shatters back. And, and now he's crying like a little baby while this woman is comforting him. I gotta tell you, a lot of people, say Tom McFarlane's not a great writer. I have to agree. He's not a great writer, but I've never had any real problems with it. I tend to read the whole book, always. I never skip huge parts or anything. I never skip the parts with the news people talking about anything, even though I read the first one. I don't need to read the other two. This woman is the one that should really be comforted. She had a near-death experience, a near-rape experience, and yet she's helping this guy. I don't know. I just think the whole thing here is kind of just, it's wild. I love it. It's a nice turn. It's not a thing you would normally see. This was new to me. I liked it. Okay. Of course, now we're 1992. And like I stated earlier, this guy works for E. So apparently in 87, E didn't exist. I think that's what that was. So now E exists. And also she got, you know, the haircut that we saw earlier in Cyberforce, because this is the version of her that exists now. And, you know, they're just talking about the death of the mobster that we saw earlier with Sam and Twitch at the crime scene. So now we're back in the alley with Spawn. And, you know, he's, again, going through his mind, trying to put the pieces of the puzzle together and everything. What do these flashbacks mean? Who was that woman? I don't know. I remember who I used to be, but I don't know what's going on here or whatever. And then, of course, he takes his mask off. And when he, you know, he's taking parts of his costume off, he's starting to realize here that he is really nothing but hamburger meat. Okay? And, of course, that would be disturbing to anybody. So he starts to break down and curl up into a little corner there, while they start hearing stories of whatever wacko is jumping people in the alleys. And while Spawn is having his breakdown and these guys are trying to figure out what the hell's going on with dying mobsters and such, we have Male Bolgia, which I read Spawn up until the 30s, issue 30s, or something. I think that's at the time that I ended up stopping, because that is when my house burned down and I ended up losing everything. So I didn't continue on with that. I had to go later on and rebuild the collection. But I don't know if it was ever established that he's just straight up like the devil. Like, is Lucifer a separate character or whatever? But this is Male Bolgia, and this is the demon that made a deal with Al Simmons to come back. And then we're told next issue we're going to get the Violator. And then we have Pit here by Dale Keown, which I believe this picture came out way before we got any comic with Pit in it, because I thought Pit came out like way later. Here is a great picture of Spawn by George Perez. It's wild because I felt like those were more Spider-Man eyes than the way the Spawn's eyes were, even though, you know, in a way they are similar. Okay. And then we have something here talking about Image, and the letters pages spawning ground. I'm definitely going to have a letters page in my comic. And I've gotten newer books, but when I get to the end, I don't really see a letters page anymore. And, you know, I know that back in the day, you would send in mail, you know, they'd have a mailing address, you would snail mail it over there to get your letter printed and to get answers to your questions and such. And I know that we live in a world of social media now where you could probably ask these people a question on Twitter or Facebook or whatever, and they're probably going to give you an answer right there or whatever. I want to do, I don't know, I want my comic to be more of a traditional type thing. So you won't have to snail mail me anything, but you'll definitely be able to email me or leave comments or something like that, or do it in the Discord that I talked about earlier in another video. I have a Discord. Feel free to join. The link is in the description of my YouTube channel. So feel free to join if you want to talk about comics or do any kind of drawing or anything like that. I have definitely been looking for comic book friends. So I would do, you know, my letters page here, and I will put stuff in there. I don't know. I just think it's a cool thing to have in the back of your book. It's something I would want to keep around. Here's our original Youngblood #1 cover right there. And I'm not even sure if I still have Youngblood #1. I'm going to have to dig through. But that was Spawn #1, one of the biggest influences in my life. The same as Atomic Farming Spider-Man was a massive influence for me. I was in love with this. I think I bought 2 of these issues because I wanted one that I could wear out and one that I could keep in pristine condition. So again, anyway, guys, thanks for watching. If you like the video, please hit like. It helps my channel grow, and I'm a comic book artist who's trying to get his name out there. If you want to see more videos like this, hit subscribe so that way you'll be alerted when a new video comes out. I usually have a new video coming out every day, whether or not it's just me doing maybe a speed drawing of something, or just a doodle of some kind as practice, or if it's a, comic book review or just reminiscing about a comic that I enjoyed when I was younger, you're going to get a video of something. So again, guys, thank you, and until next time. Hello again, this is Bob, and today I'm going to be talking about Spawn number 2. I have been meaning to get to more Spawn comics because I am a massive Todd McFarlane fan, especially when it comes to any of his artwork. I made a video a while back about Spider-Man number 317, which was the first introduction to Todd McFarlane and what made me want to get into comics, want to be a comic book artist and all of that. I just actually did not want to fish out all of the Spawn issues I have packed away somewhere, even though, I want to like reread them and everything. So I went the digital route on this one so that, I'm not ruining my own collection or anything like that. Plus I can do a bunch of editing and make a couple jokes and such as I do a review of any of these books. So here we are on the cover, another Todd McFarlane cover here that was painted by Stacey is the name that's on here. It's the same as the painted cover on Spawn number 1. I believe we got that for the first 2 to 3 issues. I can't remember what the third issue's cover looks like, but I will be taking a look at that soon. And as you can see on here, it does say digital edition on the cover so that you know what I'm talking about here. We are going to move inside. This one's dedicated to Steve Ditko. All of the Image comics were having dedications placed on the inside cover. It's, just what they were doing. I guess they wanted to let you know, like, it wasn't just money that made the Image guys leave Marvel and form their own company, even though they made a shit ton of money from it. It was the respect or, the fact that these companies were taking and using their artwork for everything and they weren't being properly compensated for it. And most of the dedications that we were getting here in these books were to the people that worked before them for Marvel or DC that had their work used in a similar fashion where they didn't get compensated for it. And most of these artists that were, these dedications were to also had, problems or whatever with, these big corporations basically taking and using their artwork in the manner that they did. So, that was one thing that I loved most about Image was the fact that they were kind of fucking over these big corporations. That was my favorite thing. That's the thing I got most out of it. I remember a few years ago that people were worried about the Spider-Man thing because Sony owns Spider-Man or something like that. And they were like, you were not going to have... I can't remember what it was, but it was something to do with... I think it was because maybe it was Steve Ditko that was saying that he was supposed to be labeled as part creator of Spider-Man. And people were like on Marvel's side, which I thought was just absolutely ridiculous that so many people would take the side of a major, corporation over like the artist and creator responsible for that work. I don't know. That's something I'll have to look into another time and do another video on because I can't remember exactly what it was. I just remember reading some stuff like that and being like, what the hell? What is wrong with people that they would pick the wrong side to be on? But anyway, let's continue on with this. So here we open on a splash page of the Clown. Okay. We can see his name obviously here as the Violator, and he is talking to a little kitty cat. And that's basically it. Like he's going on like a cartoon character about what he's going to do to someone, but he doesn't really mention who in these words. But, he's going to be making fillets out of his lungs and milkshakes out of his heart, and he's going to soft boil his eyeballs and things like that. So, we're getting the idea that this guy is evil and gross. Okay. And his conversation with this cat continues. Again, not really knowing. I mean, we can guess that he's going to be an enemy of Spawn. Okay. It's time we had an enemy introduced. The first issue of Spawn was basically Spawn finding out what he was, us getting the origin story for Spawn. No, yeah, so there wasn't much else that went on with that. We were just getting the details of that. I actually thought that the first issue of Spawn was done pretty well, considering Todd McFarlane's not the greatest writer. But he was able to give us all the information we needed so that we know what Spawn is and what this book is going to be about. So now we're going to be introduced to an enemy so that we can get this action rolling, okay? But he's just here now talking to this cat about everything he's going to be doing to Spawn and how Spawn is going to beg him to kill him. Okay, and then we have another splash page of Spawn. So it was a nice cut to of Spawn here. And Spawn is still, again, just coming to terms with what he is. And he's trying, he's going through his head again that he's been duped, that the devil tricked him, that, he didn't get anything he wanted. It was all, a scam and, blah, blah, blah. We're gonna see that a lot. It's like every Spawn issue is just Spawn rehashing this and kind of never coming to terms with it. And again, we're here, same thing. He's looking at himself. He's looking at the ground hamburger meat that used to be a person. And he's like, am I even a person again? Like, am I a man? I don't know. I'm just some kind of horrible ground hamburger meat walking around the alleys here. And then he climbs to the top of a church because he keeps saying that he's drawn to a church. Somehow he doesn't know why. We're going to find out why. It's going to take a lot of issues to get there. But I'm wondering if that's what Todd McFarlane had in mind since the beginning, or if it was something that he ended up changing because it ended up being a better idea, because we do know that the person that actually killed Spawn wasn't so much Jason Wynn, which we're also going to be introduced to here. It was Chapel from Youngblood that did it. The new generation of heroes, that hero that killed this government operative on orders from his boss. That's the same Chapel, the one who has AIDS and freely gives it to every person because he's such a hero. But anyway, so here's Spawn on top of this church when he notices that little guy down there yelling at him, and I find that to be hilarious that we have this little violator here on this roof, like yelling up there at Spawn. Then we cut to on a corporation, a skyscraper, right? There's a lot of noise coming from behind the door. It looks like a bodyguard comes running, and he's like, boss, open the door. With all that yelling, you have to assume that your boss is kind of busy, and there's no way he's going to be able to open the door. But then we have an arm shoot through the door and grab him by the face, and then we can see here that he reaches inside of his chest and pulls his heart out. Okay. And then we have the full page spread of this demon, which at the time we did not know was Violator. So I know the game that Tom McFarlane's playing here, we get introduced to this little clown, and we're seeing these things in two different places almost at the same time, or at least that's what we're led to believe, so that we don't think the little clown is this creature, okay? Even though when we see this creature talking, which we will in a page or two, it's the same type of dialogue we're getting from the clown, okay? Next, we have the three news reporters from the three different news channels. And this is the only part of Spawn that I'm not a big fan of. I feel like one reporter would have been enough. Like, it was kind of a cool idea that we were getting three different points of view or three different types of media coverage on this, and I think it was hilarious that the entertainment news would always like look at Spawn's fashion or something like that. I thought that was hilarious. I thought it was a good take, but in the end, we have all this dialogue and it's all just stating the same thing, okay? And they're talking right now about all of these mob bosses getting killed and how the police are baffled as to who's doing it. Cut back to Spawn on top of a church again and removing his mask again, because now he believes that maybe his powers will be able to change him or fix him so that he's not just a walking pile of hamburger meat. So he gives it a try, as we can see here, and he does change. Now he looks like, a normal person, but he starts looking at himself and he's like, no, this can't be. What's going on here? And he uses the magic again and stays the same, and uses it again and stays the same. And we can see here in this bottom panel, he's like, not again. This can't be. I'm a black man. So can I just say that when I first read this as a kid, it was 1992. I say kid, I was like 17 or 18 at the time. I was a little confused because I'm like, he states here he's a black man, but I'm seeing a blonde-haired white guy. And that's where it was confusing me, because it's like, did the colorist get it wrong and make him the wrong color? No, he was a black man. He's trying to, to bring himself back. But when he does that, he is changing to a white person. And that's what's bothering him, because he can't, go see his wife looking like this, because she'll never believe that this is the person that she married who came back from the dead. So I get it. It just didn't come off that way at first. It just seemed weird. I had to look at it for a minute or keep going in order for it to come, to me. Then we cut to Sam and Twitch, which nothing much happens here. We've got Sam and Twitch. I think they were just put here so that we don't forget who they are. They needed to just have, a page in the book. And it's just Sam complaining that, he's got to write 5 reports until Twitch tells him he's got to write 6. And he's going off about how, why does he have to do these reports and all of this? And he's reading the newspaper and he's like, why do all these reporters have to report on this? It doesn't make any sense to me. And come on. Sometimes I just feel like Todd McFarlane didn't really know what to have Sam and Twitch do or say. So he would kind of just put anything in there. And this one sadly did not play out that well. Then we cut to another place where we have some guy being attacked by this demon again, who, again, after we see the dialogue here, he sounds a lot like the clown. And we can see that he ripped the heart out of this person as well. Cut back to Spawn, who says that he can't stay this way. He can't stay as a white man. Now, I get it. Okay, I get what this guy, what Tom McFarlane's going for. I get what this guy is saying here. This isn't him. This isn't me. This is not who I was. And he's upset, because this, again, is another thing that, to fuck with him, that Malbolgia thought of everything. You know what I mean? Like, he gave him these powers that can basically do anything. There's no limit other than how much power he has, but it looks like he can literally make just wishes come true. Okay. So, he tried to turn himself back into who he was, but the devil had already thought of that and made sure that he couldn't do it, and he would end up being the opposite of what he was. Okay. But I have to tell you, as if I died and went to hell and came back, through a deal with the devil, I don't know. I think I'd be happier that I was alive, whether my race was or gender was changed, whatever. I don't care. I think that I would be happier. Yes, it's upsetting that the people I love probably won't recognize me or believe me when I go to tell them who I am and that I came back from the dead. They're all just going to look at me like I'm crazy. But I also feel like if I came back from the dead, and that, that old life is over because it's been 5 years and no one's, going to remember or believe that I am this person, whatever, I'm going to start a new life, as this new white guy or whatever. I'm just going to go and be like, okay, well, I'm going to get a new wife now and I'm just going to live the rest of my life out the way I normally would. But this Spawn does not, he can't do it, at least not yet. He decides to turn back into hamburger meat, which, at the time, I was like, okay, if that's what you'd rather be, then, that's cool. And then he has a flashback. And this flashback is of his former boss, Jason Wynn, who he believes may have been the person to kill him. And he's going on about how they used to fight all the time because Jason Wynn was just kind of doing all this illegal stuff and all these cover-ups, and Al Simmons was kind of realizing it with the jobs that he was getting and what he was doing. And then I guess these memories hit a little too hard because it kind of, Spawn kind of passes out, falls off of this church into the alley. We cut back to this demon again, ripping more hearts out of apparent mobsters and tossing them around. And making the declaration that this is getting boring because he's just running around killing bad guys to get people to chase after Spawn. Now, we're going to find that out later on. And that's another thing that just... I kind of get what Tommy McFarlane was doing. He was kind of making the Violator look like he's a stupid enemy that he thought he was doing something good that his boss, the devil, was going to like a lot. But he's killing bad guys and pinning it on Spawn so that enemies would go after him. But, in essence, again, he's killing the bad guys. Like, he could have been out killing, innocent people. And then people would have been going after Spawn, like the authorities and everything. So, it's what it is. Like I said, sometimes, I get what was going on. I don't feel like it played out very well. Cut back to the clown here with Spawn. Now, again, like when we're going back page to page here, we're bouncing back and forth just after, one page or whatever. We're getting the impression that all of this is happening at the same time, okay? That it wasn't taking place in different times, and that this little clown guy is not the demon that we're seeing that is ripping the hearts out of mobsters. Even though we know, because we've read these before, that the clown guy is the Violator. We got that information at the end of this book. So the clown guy here helps Spawn up and, starts kind of telling him that he knows who he is and what he is. And then he starts going on about how he's going to do all this, or how he's this big, impressive bad guy that Spawn should be afraid of. And that's the funny thing, because, again, we're getting this impression that this little guy here is just crazy. Like, everything he's saying is, we're just looking at him and we're like, no, this guy can't do any of this stuff. What's he going on about? And he's made to be comedic, because here he is where he just realized that his fly was open the whole time, as we saw on the previous page. And he stops to zip it up and then starts pointing his finger at Spawn, talking about all the things he's going to do to him. And Spawn's just like, dude, you're fucking crazy. I'm out of here. And as he turns around to walk away, the clown then turns into Violator. Okay. It's cool. I like it. Again, I think some of the story is, there wasn't much that went on here, but there's more that went on here than in other things. When it comes to Spawn, Spawn does one thing, and he mopes around about Wanda. He doesn't do anything unless he's forced to by everybody else. Spawn would have sat in an alley and never did anything ever if everybody else had left him alone. And I think Tom McFarlane knew this, so he had to bring out all these other characters in order to get Spawn to do anything. Because, it kind of makes sense. Like, Al Simmons is depressed, right? Like, he died. He came back to life 5 years later, saw his wife married his best friend, and had a kid that Al Simmons couldn't give him. We didn't get that information here yet, but we are going to get it. And, yes, that would, destroy any person. So that would, he's depressed and he's sitting in an alley and, being, homeless or whatever, and then that's it. That's all we're getting. The artwork in this was insanely good. I loved every second of it. Even if the story is not great, I have reread these books 1,000 times, and I'll never get tired of reading them. I love looking at the artwork. And an interesting note here. When I was in school when this book came out. I remember taking an English class and we were reading Beowulf, and we had to take a test on it. I think it was like our midterm exam on that. And we were given the option to either write some kind of essay, or we could draw a picture of what we thought Grendel looked like. Okay. And, I was reading this and I was trying to draw like Tom McFarlane. So I drew a picture of the Violator as Grendel. and got an A+ on that because my teacher thought that was the most awesome thing they had ever seen. Even though, because Grendel doesn't have like an actual description of what it looks like, so we could just interpret it any way we wanted to, and I could just draw the Violator and have that be Grendel. And I remembered that. I wish I still had that page of artwork, but I believe the teacher actually kept it. But yeah, so that's what this book reminded me of. So, guys, I want to thank you for watching. If you like this video, please hit like. It helps my channel grow. And I'm trying to have my channel grow so that I can get my name out there as a comic book artist, because I'm currently working on a comic of my own creation called Ghost Girl. If you want to see more videos like this, please hit subscribe. And again, I want to thank you guys for watching, and see you next time. All right, hello again, everybody. This is Bob. Today I'm going to be talking about Spawn number 3, and I'm doing this one as the digital edition, so that way we can get great looks at Todd McFarlane's artwork, because the stuff in here is amazing. These issues of Spawn in the very beginning were some of his best artwork, coming off of Spider-Man. The adjectiveless Spider-Man that he was working on as he was writing is the best Spider-Man artwork he did, and this is the best Spawn artwork. So here we have like an image of Spawn on top of a church again, and it really does not matter how many times he draws that same picture. It will always look good. It's amazing. Yeah, totally love this. When we go inside, we see that this is dedicated to Jerry the Joker Robinson. Maybe somebody who watches this video can tell me who the hell that is, because I really don't know. I don't know if that's a sports guy. I don't know if it's somebody in comics. I never heard the name before. And I know that Todd McFarlane was doing a lot of dedications on these episodes or these issues as he was bringing them out. But we're going to start with a splash page here of Spawn with a nose, which is a little weird, because I think it's later on that he determines that Spawn's not going to have a nose. But I have to say, it looks pretty damn good. Like, with that angle and everything, he really knew how to pull that off, and all the detail and everything is amazing. And I like how it's like breaking past the white border. Like, the white border is just like on top of the image. That's kind of awesome. But right here, he has finally remembered the name of his wife. The images of the woman that were flashing through his head, and he knows that it's his wife and everything, and now he is going to go look for her, right? All right, so he determines that the first thing he's going to have to do is to get the file on her, so he knows where she lives. So apparently he knows that even though for him it has only felt like a couple of days, for her it's been 5 years since he was there. So I guess a lot has changed, and he's going to have to find out if she's still living in the same house or not. He also starts talking about the little guy, which was the Violator. Now, if we remember the last issue, Violator was talking to Spawn, and he turned into the Violator as Spawn was walking away, and I got the impression that that was the time that he was like going to attack, right? But that wasn't it. He was just doing that thing where it's like, okay, I'm behind your back, you're not seeing me, so I'm going to do this. It's kind of a secret taunt type thing, like, this is who I really am. And Spawn was just walking away with whatever information he had from the Violator. So right now he is just talking about that, and then he's deciding that, okay, I'm going to go break into this place to get these files to find out what's going on with Wanda, okay? On the next page, we have another basically splash page. We only have 2 panels here. And he's talking about the devil and how the devil gave him a bum deal, which, I mean, come on, that's nothing new. There are millions of stories out there where the devil does that, tricks people into giving up their soul for whatever, and this is Spawn's origin, and he's just kind of letting the anger out, and he's saying, you better be prepared when I come for you. I kind of feel like that is, yeah, I get it, he's angry, right? And he thinks he's tough, but didn't the devil actually literally give him these powers? Do you think these powers are somehow going to hurt the devil? Okay, well, anyway, we turn to the next page, and then there's a ton of laughter going on, which is from the devil himself as he's listening to Spawn talk a bunch of trash and not back it up because he really can't, And the devil apparently spends his time just watching what he did to Al Simmons. Al Simmons must be that important. He doesn't have like a lot of other shit to tend to or anything like that. So he's just sitting there and, talking about how stupid and foolish he is and how funny this all is that, Al Simmons should have read the fine print. Okay. And of course that continues on to the next page as well. He's just kind of going through a plan where he's like, he chose Al Simmons because Al Simmons had like no moral code, and he's going to make a great addition to Hell's army that he is building in order to invade heaven. So that's what we're getting there. Okay, that's his plan. Now, this is like a big wall of dialogue to explain what I just said in a few words, but that's what it is. Okay, then we're going to cut to Sam and Twitch, who again have no business being in this issue. Tom McFarlane had no idea what to do with them, so he has them just sitting there complaining about the paperwork their captain piled onto them. That's it. That's the end of that. There's no reason to go through that. And then we see the Violator just walking through an alley, and he's singing a song, and he's very, very pleased with the lyrics that he's created, which are horrible. We cut to the CIA headquarters in New York, where this guy is sexually harassing the fuck out of his secretary. Like it is not even being gentle with it or anything like that. He's just like, come on out to dinner with me. I can think of a lot of better things for your lips to do than kiss your husband. And I'm just like, holy shit, really? Because that's, wow. And this woman's just like, please, I can't, guess she just needs to stand up for herself a little bit more. That is definitely a hostile work environment right there. But he goes into his office and notices that a file cabinet is open, and he gets pissed off about who could have been in his files, and then Spawn comes down and grabs him up. Now, what really gets me here is Spawn, grabs this guy up by the neck, and he's like, you listen and you listen good. Word is that since your divorce, you haven't paid a penny in alimony or child support. I highly recommend that you correct this oversight quickly, because if I have to come back again, she'll get the money from your life insurance policy. Capiche? And the guy is just like, yeah, I understand, fine. Where the fuck did Spawn get that information on this guy? Like, he went to go get information on his wife that's in a file, that's in an unlocked file cabinet in this guy's room or whatever, okay? Was his file in there also, and he decided to take a look at it? I mean, we all applaud Spawn here for jumping in and teaching this guy a lesson. It just seems like he did a couple of weeks recognizance on this guy in order to get every bit of information he could, and then come in and give him this threat. Okay. He makes the comment that some of us would give our lives to have a wife and family, which is, again, what put Spawn in this predicament. And then he disappears, and the guy is just like, where are you, damn it? Where are you? And then we have the devil again, just laughing his ass off, and he's like, yes, that's it. Become evil, vicious, violent. I don't think that's Al Simmons becoming evil, vicious, and violent. If anything, he was doing a good deed, and he did nothing but make a threat to the guy. He didn't actually do anything physical other than jack him up for a second. He could have beat the hell out of him or murdered him right there or whatever, but he didn't go that route. So I don't really feel like he went super vicious and violent there. Not to mention, Al Simmons was like the CIA hitman who was going out there and murdering people like all the fucking time. Like that was the deal. Well, anyway, we cut back to Spawn here, who's now looking at the file that he got from this CIA headquarters. And he's just like, wait, she moved? She lives in a different place? And then he's like, no, oh my God, no, it can't be. And we're not really told like what's happening there just yet. But it looks like the next day we're in Queens, where Wanda has moved, and Spawn decides that it's better to be this blonde dude than to be a walking pile of hamburger meat. So especially if he's going to go meet the person that was his wife, there's no way she's going to want to talk to like what looks to be like, again, just a walking pile of hamburger meat. Okay. So he transforms into this dude, and he goes up to the house and rings the doorbell, and she answers in like the fanciest of dinner gowns, because this is Wanda's introduction. Like, this is the first time we're seeing her really, and it has to be a big entrance. I get it. I get what Todd McFarlane was doing here, right? We need it to be memorable, and I think the picture looks awesome. My one complaint on this artwork, and it's I never saw McFarlane do it until this issue, is the breasts on Wanda. Okay, he's doing that Jim Lee kind of cross-hatched thing, the horizontal lines that like fade down or whatever, that are supposed to add a shadow. I always hated that. I hated it when Jim Lee did it. I hate it when other artists replicated it. That was not my thing. And if we look at all of the other things that Todd McFarlane has done, one that comes to mind is the blonde girl from Spawn number 8 that was written by Alan Moore, when we have Billy Kincaid in Hell, and we have this this ditzy blonde there. They're drawn completely different in that and this. So I get it. Maybe he was experimenting. He was trying something new here. He was taking a page from Jim Lee or whatever, but I don't feel that it works, and that's the only flaw in this artwork here. But anyway, she enters the door, and the dog is going over to sniff, and of course, Spawn here, blonde Spawn, I'm going to call him, is like dumbfounded. Like, he's like looking at her, and he's in shock, and he's just like, "Oh my God, you're so gorgeous. I forgot how beautiful you were, my wife," and of course, he can't say that. He does say, that you're gorgeous. I mean, it's gorgeous, talking about the dress, because you got to understand, he's a complete stranger to her. The dog continues to sniff some really bad Nikes that McFarlane drew there. No big deal, okay? But he makes up a story that he's from the SPCA, going around and making sure that all the dogs are licensed. When a little child comes to the door asking for mama, and blonde Spawn is just like, "What the hell? There's a child here? She had a child, but we couldn't. I thought, we couldn't have it. It was me. I can't believe it. It was me this whole time that stopped us from having a kid that she wanted so badly." And he starts to get a little dizzy, and he faints. Okay. He wakes up a little later, and now we have Wanda with Terry here. And Terry's, asking him if he's okay. Do you need some help? Do you need us to call anybody? And Spawn's just like, "No, I don't have a wife anymore." And Terry's just like, "Oh man, I'm sorry to hear that." And he's like, "Yeah, me too. It kills me every time I see her," because he's looking dead at Wanda. And I've seen this scene in movies 100 times. I was like, okay, this is pretty clever on Todd McFarlane's part. I also really like the face of the blonde guy here in this bottom panel, along with Wanda's face. Like, these just looks really good. I always liked it. The detail or something, it always just stood out to me. But we turn the page here, and he's still talking to Terry. Terry's kind of like explaining what happened, giving this complete stranger just way too much information on Wanda's past, saying that her husband was killed in the line of duty, and that I was also his best friend, and we ended up marrying each other and having a kid. And that's kind of just like throwing it in blonde Spawn's face. And blonde Spawn is just like, "Well, there's no way for me to be able to talk to my wife anymore, and I can't tell her my feelings, because if I did, she'd probably just run away." And Wanda's just like, "Don't be silly. You seem like a very strong and capable person, and I'm sure your wife would listen to you. I'm sure she still loves you," even though Wanda has no idea who this woman is that he's talking about, or who he is. They're just, I guess, just trying to make him feel a little better, considering that he fainted. And he's like, "Thank you guys. You're very nice. I'm going to be on my way." And then he goes back to his alley and screams no, so that the world can hear it. So I bet you Terry and Wanda were at home like, "Hey, did you hear that? No, that was probably the blonde guy we helped later. He really sounds pissed." And then here we have Spawn just like letting off with a bunch of powers here, just completely pissed off, because I'm sorry, I'd probably be that same way. He gets killed, he makes a deal with the devil to come back, and then Wanda's just like, "Okay, I'm going to go marry your best friend and have a kid with him." There we go. So Spawn's really upset about that, and he's just talking about it. He's just like, "Hey, I can't believe this happened. I'm going to go kill the devil. We'll see. And we see this power meter lowering too, and he was just letting off a bunch of powers in anger. Like he wasn't even like doing anything with it. And then we have the Violator show up again, and I have to say that little Violator there is it's just really cute. Okay, I don't know what it was about it. I just liked it. Plus, I always loved that he was wearing the Image shirt. Okay. And he comes in and he's like, "Yo, Mr. Spawn, dude, remember me? We didn't get a chance to share our common interests like killing and maiming and slaughtering and destroying." And Spawn's just like, "What the fuck are you talking about, dumbass?" And then the clown turns into the Violator. And Spawn's like, "I don't know who you are or what you are, but I guarantee you've picked the wrong time," right? Because, yeah, actually, it was the wrong time. If the Violator was going to go after Spawn, last issue probably would have been the better one. Why wait until Spawn is this angry and, in my opinion, ends up with the upper hand, But the Violator's like, they said you had a lot of spunk. Let's see for ourselves where. And he reaches in his chest and pulls his heart out, and he's like, the master will be pleased. But that was, kind of simple. And, he's like, I live to serve the master and blah, blah, blah. And I'm the Violator. And now I got this heart and I'm going to walk away with it. And as he's walking away, we hear somebody say the Violator. And when he turns around, there's just a fucking amazing 2-page spread of the Violator and Spawn with a hole going through Spawn's chest where his heart was ripped out and Spawn letting this magic out and everything. Seriously, this picture had to take some time. I remember looking at this so much, just the pattern of the ink that he did on Violator in order to get these textures and everything. It's just so cool, just so insane. But anyway, it says next issue, all hell breaks loose on Earth. Okay, so this picture here reminds me of when, again, Adjectiveless Spider-Man, written by Todd McFarlane, when you opened it up and we got the double-page spread of Kraven the Hunter, who was dead and has like the big hole going through his head, standing in front of Spider-Man. And that's what this picture reminds me of. It's like the same thing. But this picture is fucking amazing. This is like one of his best pieces of work. So anyway, guys, I want to thank you guys for watching. If you like the video, please hit like. It helps my channel grow. I want to thank everybody who's subscribed. By the way, I'm on my way to 200 subscribers, and I never thought that would happen. If you want to see more videos like this, hit subscribe. I'm going to bring videos out as much as I can. I usually bring out a couple a week. So again, I want to thank you guys for watching, and until next time. All right, everyone, it's Bob again, and this time I'm going to finish up doing the first 4 of Todd McFarlane's Spawn. I've already done 1, 2, and 3, so I'm going to do issue number 4 today and complete this basic introduction to Spawn. This was the, I believe this probably would have been a mini-series if it hadn't been as successful as it was, so it probably would have ended here. But it does continue on after this. So here's the cover where we just have a picture of the Violator. I have no notes. It's fine. The Violator is, I think, a pretty cool villain, or a pretty cool looking demon. It's original. I haven't seen anything like it before. And I remember that I was in high school when these books were coming out. And in my English class, we were reading Beowulf. And when we had to take I believe it was a midterm exam. For a bonus, we could either write a description of what we thought Grendel looked like, or we could draw a picture of it. And since I was an aspiring artist, I drew the Violator as Grendel and received an A+ for that. So just thought that was an interesting thing. I remember doing that. I wish I still had the picture, but it's been lost to fire years ago. All right, so let's go ahead and begin this. This is, it says questions part 4. So this is, again, part 4 of the 4-part series of Spawn, the introduction, dedicated to Joe Shuster. Okay. And we're starting off with, if we remember last issue, Violator reached into Spawn's chest and ripped out his heart. And this page, you can see by all of this dialogue, is just wrapping up everything that took place in the first 3 issues. I can't complain about that. That is something that I've stated before, that I get into a comic or I pick a comic up because I wasn't able to get the first issues. I just want to jump on board and I have no idea what's going on. At least Todd McFarlane gave us that. Okay.
Um, and it's basically just summing up that, you know, Lieutenant Colonel Al Simmons was killed, made a deal with the devil to come back to be with his wife, but the devil cheated him, made him into a hellspawn and returned him 5 years into his own future, disfigured and deformed so that there was no way his wife would be able to recognize him. And then, even though he has a magical power that seems to be able to do anything he can imagine, he cannot transform into his former self. Um, so there's no way he can let her know that he's alive, and without her just seeing a big creature of hamburger meat. So then we turn the page here and we get to this just amazing double page spread. Now I know that the last issue ended on an image very similar to this, but this is, I'm sorry, this is amazing. It's beautiful to look at. I loved this. I loved the colors. I loved the idea of it. Everything about it was awesome. Okay. And it's just basically the Todd McFarlane's like, that did nothing to me. I'm not Todd McFarlane, but Spawn is basically like, that did nothing to me. So let's continue on, right? So then the Violator is just like, wait a minute, how the hell are you still standing? This doesn't make any sense. How do you not need a heart to live? Now, I'm sure that none of this was established yet, even in Todd McFarlane's universe that he's creating. Like, this is stuff that will come later on when he hires these other writers to come in and basically flesh out what he created. Okay. Um, they're going to add their own creations and stuff like that, but they're basically going to give reasons or, backstory, lore, things like that. I feel like the Violator should know what a Hellspawn looks like when all of the Hellspawn wear the same uniform. But again, maybe that wasn't established yet because he seems to be pretty surprised that he rips the heart out of this Hellspawn and that guy's still living. It doesn't seem to affect the other Hellspawns, it doesn't affect the Violator when it happens to him, but he goes on for a couple of pages, basically just shocked. Like, they never told me that you were going to be like this powerful. They told me this would be an easy fight or whatever. Now, I feel like this dialogue is contradictory, okay? Because in this very issue, he says that he was sent up here to show Spawn the ropes. I guess to teach him how to be a Hellspawn, but it doesn't look like he's been doing any of that. He went on one of the dumbest missions I've ever seen where he was killing criminals in order to make it look like it was Spawn doing it, I guess. I don't know. I guess if I put it that way, then the authorities would come after Spawn and Spawn would have to defend himself against what would be considered the good guys. I don't know. Maybe that's what the Violators' plan was. I don't really feel like that was completely laid out for us. But he's basically like turning the mob against each other. So the mob is killing their own and, you know, uh, yeah, so I don't know. His plan again wasn't, I don't think very thought out or whatever. But he drops the heart to the ground and Spawn. I don't know why I keep wanting to call him Todd. I guess because like Todd is writing himself into this character. We know this with his wife Wanda, his daughter Cyan, and all that. He's writing what he knows. Spawn picks it back up, uses his power to replace the heart again, and says it makes him feel better. So apparently, it did accomplish something. And then he starts basically ranting at the Violator, like, you were lied to. Well, I was lied to too, and it's your problem. I got my own problems to deal with, and all this, and I don't care who you are. Just leave me the hell alone. Blah blah. Okay, and then he shoots the Violator with a power blast. Okay, I think it's awesome. This is a beautiful, 2-page spread here. Tons of detail and everything, right? Spawn looks awesome there, shooting that power blast through the Violator. And we have like this gigantic window or scroll basically explaining all of that while also, showing us what's in Spawn's head, the questions that he has at everything that's been going on. Since again, this 4-part miniseries was called Questions. Okay. Turning the page, we see, now the Violator has a hole blown through him, and he's just like, you idiot, that's not going to do anything to me. I'm the Violator, blah, blah. And let me show you what, real pain and suffering is and whatever, right? So they start fighting each other. Violator throws him up against the wall, and then Spawn gets up and, he's going to pay him back or whatever. Spawn shoots another blast at him, misses, but then hits him again with something else. We see a nice splatter of blood, right? And then the Violator's like, no, you take that. And then Spawn's like, you take this. And I'm going to say, I've seen other people review this book and they're like, this was a cheap, easy way for Todd to get a book done without having to do much art or whatever. I thought that this was funny. I thought he was adding a bit of levity to something that was like a really dark, grim and gritty story or whatever. And he went and did something funny. Of course, I feel like Todd's sense of humor, like we've read the Spider-Man books and everything, it leaves something, um, you know, yeah, he's not great at writing jokes or whatever, right? But I thought it was pretty good. Um, and then we cut over and the male Bolgia has shown up. And the male Bolgia is just like, you idiots are fighting each other. This is, you need to stop. I'm the one in control of all of you. You guys don't have, a say in your destiny and everything and blah, blah, blah. Right. And that's basically what that whole wall of text is until Spawn's like, go to hell. And Violator's like, buddy, I think he was already there, and then we get, a lot more dialogue from Male Bolgia, basically explaining what's going on here. That, he basically recruited Al Simmons to be a Spawn in his army of 8 billion, but he still needs a few billion more before he can fulfill his plan of invading and conquering heaven and I guess killing God, right? And that's basically what all of that information is. He's just like, you were a soldier in Earth's army, right? You're a trained soldier, and I'm going to use that to my advantage and make you a trained soldier in Hell's army. Okay. Um, Continuing on with that, he's just like, obviously he's like explaining the powers. Now, I gave you power so that you would learn how to use it, but obviously I've limited that, and it's supposed to be a double-edged sword. Basically, if Spawn uses that power, then it drains his meter, and if his meter gets to zero, he dies and goes back to hell. But if he doesn't use that meter, which it'll say Malbolgia thinks he would only use that meter in order to fight the forces of evil, then he would be letting good people die. And that would be like, so that's the double-edged sword that apparently we're getting here, that Todd is trying to establish that Al Simmons is inherently good and has to do good by people, even though I think a lot of the backstory that we see is like, it looked more like Al Simmons was more of a paid assassin for the U.S. government. But it's what it is. And then Male Bolgia is like, you know what? I'm going to replace your arm for you so that you don't have to squander any more power. I'm not sure why he would do that. I don't know if he thinks it's just it doesn't matter in the end or whatever. But he repairs Spawn for him without Spawn having to use that power. And then Violator starts going on to some stupid rant like, hey, what about me? Look at all the stuff I did for you. I was killing all of these mob members for you. I was hurting your Hell Spawn for you, and I got my arm ripped off, and I don't get any thanks for this or whatever. And then Male Bolgia tells him to shut the fuck up. And then apparently removes his power to transform into the Violator and turns him into the clown. Basically, I guess, for eternity, right? As a punishment for his supreme failure in everything that he did on Earth. Okay. And then we get a long page of ranting from the clown, basically saying, it's just great that I'm stuck in this horrible body, but you know what? I love it, so I'm going to do it anyway. Again, the dialogue tends to contradict itself, or, maybe he's convincing himself that he would rather be the clown than be the Violator or whatever, but he's basically, stuck on Earth now in this way. And Spawn's just sitting there kind of watching it happen. But I will say this, my favorite part here is that you see Male Bolgia just kind of disappear, right? And then the clown just like humps and he's like, this sucks the big one, and just walks away, right? That was probably my favorite panel in the entire book. But then we get like an overview. They're in, looks like New York, right? That's actually a very good cityscape of New York. We actually see the Twin Towers there, since that took place before, 9/11. And we have Spawn, who apparently took a hat and trench coat, just walking down the street and trying to piece together everything that's taken place over the last 4 issues in his head, trying to make sense of his new world or whatever. When these two kids start running down the street and they're like, there he is, man, there's that new superhero. And Spawn's like, who, me? Because Spawn, according to Todd, this is what we're seeing, is that Spawn is a superhero. That's how he looks at himself, even though We saw him do one kind of superheroic thing in the beginning where he protected some woman who was being attacked by some guys in an alley, right? Okay, I mean, superheroes do that. I agree. But it didn't look like he was doing anything else other than kind of moping around and like trying to, get through the fog in his head and remember everything that's going on and everything, right? But he's like shocked because he's like, oh no, they're on to me. They've discovered me. And then those kids run over, and of course, those kids are named Rob and Eric, which I'm sure is for Rob Liefeld and Eric Larson, because they were really keeping it in the family with Image. And that was one of the things I loved the most about these Image books. I loved that they were like sharing each other's characters in each book and everything and just like promoting the hell out of it, which, as far as I understand, was like mostly like a Tom McFarlane thing. Like he was really pushing the Image brand the whole time, which is another thing I want to talk about in just a second. But, they run over there and they're actually looking at the Savage Dragon on TV because the Savage Dragon appears around the same time as Spawn does. Uh, I kind of like the idea that the whole Image universe spawned at like the same time, right? I think it's been established that Youngblood was around for a long time, especially considering like in Youngblood Strugfile, we're seeing that Youngblood was around during World War II and such. But the rest of these characters like all seem to pop up at around the same time, and I kind of like that, right? But they're going on kind of arguing about what's the best new superhero around or whatever. Is it Youngblood? Is it Savage Dragon or whatever? As Spawn just walks off, I think a little more depressed that, he's not being looked at as the hero or whatever. And then we're going to cut over to Spawn's old house where his best friend apparently married his wife after he died. And Wanda apparently woke up from a bad dream, and that bad dream was about Al, and she felt that it was like so real, and it's almost like, you know, like there's a communication or something like that going on, like she's going to be tormented. Maybe that's another thing that like Malbolgia did. You know what I mean? He's like bringing Spawn there and having him still around, kind of like, it's like haunting her the whole time because it's been 5 years later. She's married to another man. She has a child and everything. And yeah, you're not going to forget this person that you love that passed away or whatever. But like she seems genuinely haunted by it all the time. And can I just say, I love this picture of Wanda at the bottom here. I don't know what it is. It's the inking, the way it looks, the coloring, the light coming in. I just always thought it was awesome. I remember looking at that for so long. I love the hair, the texture that Todd McFarlane gave and everything. I love it. Even though this page could have probably been done in like an hour or two. It's mostly just some black panels, some shattered glass, right? The silhouette of a house, and then just them two in bed, and that's it, right? But that is it. That is the end of issue number 4. That's where we're leaving off, where Spawn kind of that was an origin story, right? I don't feel that it needed to take 4 issues. I feel like it could have been done in 3. I think he went for the 4-issue thing in order to be able to do a collection and have that come in at like the graphic novel size, which is smart, but I don't feel that he had enough storyline to fill 4 issues. But overall, as far as the Image comics go, this was one of the better ones, in my opinion. It was one of the ones I was continuously following, and I'm going to say this. He was not as late as anyone else when it came to these issues, right? I'm not sure when the first issue came out, but this issue came out in September. The third issue came out in August, so that is 1 month apart. And I remember that issue 2 had come out in June, so there was 1 month missing between the second and third issue, right? So Todd was trying to stay on schedule with his books because he felt that that was a very important thing. And I remember hearing those stories from Rob Liefeld, right? That Todd would yell at them like children or whatever because their books were constantly late and getting later and later, and that it was hurting them. It was hurting their sales, and distributors were getting angry and all of this because of the late books and everything. And I don't feel like that was a thing that Rob Liefeld cared about at all, which I think kind of led to like Liefeld's downfall. And yes, there's a downfall there. Like he is nowhere near as successful as he used to be. And I feel like he could have been had he stuck with it, right? But that's not what happened. Like he would get tired after one issue and go on to another thing and do one issue and then one issue and then eventually drop off and then do a random issue of something for some company somewhere that would still hire him. You know what I mean? And then that's it. And I think that's been depleted. Like he did his last thing for Marvel because he's pissed at them. Um, he did Archie Comics to Shield, and he did one issue out of the four he was supposed to do and quit over something I think is completely stupid. He had that thing at DC, but then he quit that after having been removed from books and then put on other books, and then whatever the deal was, he said he quit, and that's fine. But I kind of feel like he always quits at the same way that he quit Image, like it was right before he was about to be let go. But anyway, I got off topic. So anyway, this was Spawn number 4. And again, I've reread this so many times. This is I will always go and look at these books and love them. I'll remember the time that I bought them, how I was 100% invested in Spawn, whether I thought the stories were great or not. I will tell you, I think that, the next issue number 5 with Billy Kincaid is probably one of my favorites. And there's been a couple more that were my favorites. Besides, like, I love the Alan Moore one. I love the Neil Gaiman one, even though that caused a lot of issues. But then there were later ones that Tom McFarlane himself wrote that were drawn by Greg Capullo that I actually really liked. When they got like their, when it got together for them, when it started coming together and they started working just perfectly together and everything, I thought it ended up pretty well. But anyway, guys, if you like this video, please hit like. It'll help my channel grow. And if you want to see more videos like it, hit subscribe. Thanks for watching. See ya.